For more on President Park's crisis, we are now joined in our Beijing studio by Professor He Wenping from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. In Seoul, South Korea, we are joined by Dr. Choi Choon-heum, senior researcher at the Korean Institute for National Unification. I want to welcome the two of you, but may I begin with you, Dr. Choi. 260,000 people, that's the number police gave over the weekend for those rallies against President Park. Of course, the protesters said themselves it's about 1 million. How long can President Park still hold on?
How
long can President Park still hold on?
Oh yes, my guess is as long as she does not have any indictment from the court or a prosecutor, so she can remain in her power. Still, there is no particular problem to stay in power, according to the Constitution.
When you look at it, Dr. Choi, the number of demonstrators certainly have already rivaled the number of the last huge demonstration back in the 1980s in South Korea. This is really unprecedented. With that, how much will this president still function?
Well, normally, yes, in terms of state governance, it is really a crisis for South Korean government. But still, there is the normal functioning, except for the brew house. The brew house has some, there are a lot of reshuffles, so it is very difficult to function normally, but still it functions, I think so.
The government is still functioning, but the Blue House is in deep crisis.
Right.
So let me ask you, Professor He here in Beijing, first time prosecutor going to question a president in the office. What would that mean?
Well, yes, that's mean a crisis for the President Park's governance. Of course, even though the brew house is still functioning, but I don't think it's functioning very well because now there are many unpresidential things now happening. One unprofessional thing is there are such a big number of people that are all, full on the street. So that will becoming increasing, I think, pressure on the President Park, even though, according to the Constitution, she remain having that position, but she is under this, the unpresidential pressure, that's for sure. So that will give him, I think, how long she will remain on that president's position is fully depend on how much we are getting more and more. If more and more, like what happened when we see globally, like in the Cairo, in Egypt, when the people full of the street, and then even also the elected former President Morsi cannot stand for. So I think another unprecedented is this prosecutor coming to now questioning her. And she also made a recognition saying now she had been doing something wrong, like passing this document to her close friend for editing. So that's the thing people think is unbearable.
So from now on, what can we expect? After the questioning from the prosecutors, what are some of the next steps can we expect? And how are those next steps likely to impact on the credibility and capability of this president? Dr. Choi, I have to invite your wisdom again.
Yes, under the South Korean current constitution, President Park has immunity, actually, from prosecution, except in case of treason, but can be investigated. That's why President Park accept investigation by prosecutors on 17th of this month, November. So that means we have to wait for the result of prosecution. Still we don't know what kind of indictment the President Park will get. So So still, this is a actually long process. Even though the hundreds of thousands people demonstrate, demanding her resign, but our country is has a legal system, so we need to apply for the constitutional procedure.
Right. So let's take a look at in history what has happened with those presidents in South Korea who have been accused of corruption. In fact, the President Park Geun-hye isn't the first South Korean president to be accused of corruption. Roh Moo-hyun was elected in 2003 only to be impeached 1 year later on charges of election fraud. He returned to the office 2 months later after the impeachment decision was overturned. When his term ended, however, Roh was accused of bribery. He killed himself, committed suicide in the year 2009. Bribery scandals also hurt Lee Myung-bak's presidency. He left office 2013 with low approval rating. So those are some of the recent cases of the top political leader in South Korea involved in some legal issues. Coming back to you, Dr. Choi, how would you compare President Park this time, the allegations against her and the anger against her, to some of the previous cases we just mentioned?
Yes, you just compare with the previous former South Korean president's political corruption. But the previous South Korean president corruption has relatives who has corruption to get the money from the big companies, and But now, President Park has no relatives. Nowadays, Miss Choi Choon-heum, her confidant. She is not a relative actually.
Right.
Is a we can say a close friend. So we have to strictly speaking. So there is a little bit of differences from Park Geun-hye's case from other previous South Korean president scandals. So we needed to still also in the first during the first President Park's apology, she said that she has not wrongdoings in terms of funding or raising and embezzlement or something. So we still have to wait.
All right.
Actually, President Park excluded her relatives.
Yes, indeed. She, of course, has been talking about her governing style and corruption-free. She has showed the press how she is having a very simple lifestyle, even though she lives in a multi-million-dollar house herself. But having said that, though, Professor He, obviously, according to Dr. Choi, she had leeways because some of the hard evidence has not directly come into her personally. And yet, this fanfare of her being corrupt and the public sentiment, together with the strong feelings, of course, from the opposition party, when they are mixed, what could that mean? What kind of a chemical effect would that, in a way, create?
Yeah, if those two things, accusations are mixed, that will be a big bombing. I think that will be quite a big blow. Maybe just let her just down from that position of president, because now there are two kinds of accusation. One is this leaking documents. She just passed this speech like to the close friend, and her close friend even stepped in the national issue, a state affair, because she doesn't have any government title with her. So that's one thing that's making a lack of transparency about the governing. And also the opposition party accused her, saying she, mismanagement and also like short of all those capacity for governing the country in a normal way. So this is one thing. Another is corruption. I don't see there are too many differences between the close friend or the relatives. Our South Korean, colleagues mentioned President Park is not doing things like with the relatives, not like those previous presidents of South Korea. But even though today's her close friend like Miss Choi, because now the investigation is going on
right.
deeper and deeper, saying there is someone from her cabinet, maybe under her direct order, saying push those business leaders to give a huge donation.
There are still a lot of things that is unknown at this moment. I'm sure with the investigation, it's likely to have more facts revealed to the public. But it is not just corruption, this specific case. It is a lot of anger coming from other issues. Dr. Choi, about some of the key policies she has drawn up. For example, Dr. Choi, people are talking about the comfort women issue that President Park has, in a way, reached a consensus about history with her Japanese counterpart. And yet, as we all understand, in this part of Asia, it is a very sentimental issue, very emotional issue. And she came into office very strong on this issue, and yet at the end of it, of course, kowtowing to certain political forces elsewhere, she changed apparently her position. So a lot of people have very different views about that compared to hers. Dr. Choi.
Well, yes, you're right. Many people has different ideas and a different view from President Park. That is true. But yes, there is some demonstration against President Park's dealing with the comfort woman. Some people say that President Park is hurried to conclude the comfort woman issues with the Japanese counterpart. But still, there is, I think another factor will be the economic factors, I think. The first, the most important factor is the state governance and the state, how to deal with the state affairs. President Park has not just or collect direction to deal with the state governance and the state affairs. That's true. And but the behind the story, behind the factor will be the most important factor is the economic factor. During the 4 years President Park's terms as a president, the South Korean economy is plunged into the actually a chaos. Compared with the previous President Lee Myung-bak, the state budget deficit has increased to 55% up.
Right.
Also, that there is a national deficit also increased over more than 50%. And the most important thing is that the young generation does not have any suitable job, even though they want to get a job. That's the real problem for the youngsters, young generations. That's why many of the young generations came into the street and to demonstrate, to protest President Park's administration. That's another big issue. But we can see South Korea has real problem. The real factor is the economic factor.
But on the other hand, yes, the economic factor is
the political factor. Yes.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Choi, you give a very insightful answer to that. But also, there's other factors. We have to name them to our audience. These are all important. When they're combined, it's likely to create something that's likely to shaken the presidency. The other thing is, what about South Korea's alliance relationship with the United States? U.S. presidential election certainly expressed very different views about where that should be like. While South Korea tried to struggle with itself to find a way out. At this moment, many are also wondering in South Korea, if I understand right, the further closer relationship with Japan, is that the way out, as South Korea and Japan traditionally have not enjoyed friendly relationship, to say the least? Dr. Choi.
Well, yes, there is some issues. The United States sometimes ask for South Korean government to to be close with Japan, and admonished to conclude some intelligence cooperation with Japan. Yes, that's the but the opposition party blaming President Park's dealing with the information exchange with the military information exchange with the Japanese. But the most important thing is when you look at the demonstrators' protest, the content, there is no particular anti-foreign slogans or anti-foreign remarks among the protesters. So far, there is no particular, particular things to blaming any countries. But in fact, in retrospect, during the President Park's, administration, 4 years, actually, South Korean government, Park's government, tried to engage China very nicely. Actually, she attends the 17th anniversary of the anti-Japanese, demonstration or something anniversary. Okay, even though United States,
yes, there was a
doesn't want
there was a time when
President
China
Park
and South
to go to
Korea
Beijing.
were very close, but at the same time, we later found out with the nuclear crisis on Korean Peninsula, the two countries certainly have very different views on the solutions. Having said that, let me come back to Professor He. A lot of factors combined. Of course, we are only observing something that's happening in that country. It's their decision. But from an international relations expert's perspective, what do you make of all of these international and regional issues cooking together with the resentment against the economic disparity and, of course, this crystallization of it, the corruption case?
Yes, there are many factors now play their parts. In terms of international relations, I think President Park also had some misjudgment about how to lead South Korea from the way forward. During the past, before this comfort agreement has been done with Japan, before this SAT missile deployment issue has been shared with the United States, actually South Korea has a very good, flexible position between those triangle relations with China, with Russia, and also with US and even with Japan. So because all those parties, they want to have embraced South Korea, they all want to work together with South Korea.
So you're saying South Korea plays its card very well earlier, and yet now it limited itself to one option.
That's true, but because now the room for playing around now is shrinkled. Even now it's very, very limited because they are tied so closely with Japan, with US, there's no other room to play around. So that's why it triggered, I think, those anger, resentment from opposition party, from the people from South Korea as well.
All right, and before we go, I would like to come back to you, Dr. Choi. From now until the election, the end of next year, how much chaos do you think politically is still expected in your country? And how is that likely to have an impact?
Actually, before any kind of indictment to pop up, I think there is some kind of there are a lot of I think protest will coming up, but at the end of this year, I think the people are really calm down because President Park has only 1 year to remain as a president. So I think people are very, very cautious about which one will be suitable for our country.
I see.
That means the resignation is okay, or whether it is okay, or the impeachment is okay. But still, I think there is no particular alternatives. My guess is impeachment is not possible. Also, neither step down is also impossible because President Park already said that she will do her best to calm down the countdown and the control the
I
state
see.
business actually.
All
So
right.
so we'll see. Yeah.